Hey Internet people, today we're going to talk about my Arturia BeatStep Pro. Recently I've been pushing the advanced button on the sequencer, actually mostly on the drums but in other ones as well, and instead of just advancing one pattern it will go 2, 3, sometimes 4 patterns ahead, which you can imagine can be a crisis when you're in the middle of a gig. And this has been my go-to sequencer for live streaming and for gigs for the past 8 years. It's something that is so integral to my sound, and I really don't know how to work without it. So I think it's definitely worth saving. It's out of warranty. This is being done at my own risk, and I want to emphasize that if you decide to do this, please just be prepared to buy a new one, because I don't know what I'm doing, and I just kind of want to open it up. Definitely think it's worth looking to see how it looks inside. Make sure to save anything in the MIDI center, the Arturia MIDI center, and know that I'm not affiliated or paid by Arturia in any way to do this. I'm not even sure how they feel about me doing this, but it's definitely something that I think is worth saving, and so I'm going to go ahead and open it up and see if we can't figure out why these buttons are advancing the way they are. So let's go ahead and get in there. So a little bit of a BeatStep Pro rundown. There is a drum sequencer with 2 additional pitch sequencers. You can control the pitch, the velocity, and the gate length via these knobs, which all correspond to the actual step in the sequence. With the shift function, you can change octaves, go back and forth in the sequence. There's all sorts of really fun stuff you can do. So as I said, as you advance the sequencer, particularly the drum sequencer, it might skip ahead 2, 3, or sometimes 4 sequences or patterns. So here's a demonstration. You'll see that it just went from 2 to 4. It's happened to me in the middle of an actual gig, but it's never actually ruined anything because there's hotkeys that you can use to kind of get out of that jam. And as I said, it really only happens in the drum one. Obviously, I think it's because I use this one the most. And I do have some trouble with the first sequencer, but it actually happens very rarely. And that would be the channel I use the second most. So it only figures that there's something happening with kind of wear in the use of the advanced function. It might also have to do with the fact that the drum sequencer is on the bottom of the unit. You see, I actually have my BeatStep Pro sitting on a music stand and facing me in a vertical, like upright. So any kind of dust would be settling in the bottom section of the unit. So I'm just kind of like throwing out ideas. I have no idea what's actually wrong with it, but I just think that something has to do with the repeated use and perhaps the tendency for debris to collect near the bottom of the machine. I want to remind you to please save all of your work in the Arturia MIDI Center. It's a really easy way to just make sure that all of your work is protected from any potential catastrophe. All right, so let's unplug it and begin to take it apart. You'll definitely note that the back plate is really what gives the BSP its feel. It's a very well-built and well-designed unit, and this back plate really gives it the kind of protection that it needs to last. I do see a little bit of dust on the back plate. That's just from 8 years of use, and so I'm going to go ahead and give it a little bit of a wipe down. And then I'll dry it off with an air blower. Importantly, there seems to be some kind of flux or, something where there was some kind of prior adhesive on the PCB. I'm not exactly sure, but, these things aren't really a problem, and I'm not going to clean these off because they're not giving me any issues, and I don't want to, actually cause a problem. I really just want to focus on the advance button in this video. We got to put these screws in a bag for sure. All right, now it's really important not to forget to take out the ribbon from the roller pad. And it's just really important to be very gentle, because this is just a very delicate little ribbon, and you just pull it straight up and you will get the ribbon to disconnect, and when you want to connect it again, you just press it back down. There's no, it's just the pressure. There's this kind of tension from the insert itself that keeps it together. The ribbon just needs to come up and out. And of course, you have to take off the knobs because the knobs themselves are keeping the PCB in place as well. They're part of what keeps it all together. After that, it should just pull out. Sometimes you might want to take your screwdriver and just push in the on-off switch. Just push it in a little bit, and that's what's oftentimes will be the thing catching. So if you can pull the left-hand side up, I'm not doing it here, but if you just want to take your screwdriver and pop it in, it'll pop right out. The first thing you're going to see are these carbon-looking pads. These are what sit on the other side of the silicon pads that are actually going to interface with the PCB board itself. So you have a carbon pad that is sitting on the inside of the silicon pad. So when you hit the button, it'll depress, making a connection between the two carbon surfaces. So this first pad is actually one that is from the drum strip that I use the most. This is the kick, the snare. You're really going to see the most wear on this insert that goes inside the silicon pads on the row that I use the most. Here is a kind of carbon pad, and then here is another carbon pad, and then when you push down on the button, they connect, and it's something like a pressure plate, which allows, the harder you push, the more the conductivity is, and you get, that's where you're getting your velocity measures. I want to mention that I don't actually know if this is carbon or not. I'm just making an assumption. I've worked with carbon paint before, and when it dries and then kind of when it wears, it produces a powder very similar to this. So I'm only imagining that that's what it is. But you definitely see the wear from both the PCB carbon and then what's on the inserts that go inside the silicon buttons themselves. I'm not going to wipe away any of the carbon that's on the pads themselves. I'll be taking my paper towel and just wiping away in between the pads themselves so I can get up that excess carbon powder, which may be perhaps causing a little bit of conductivity where it shouldn't, which might be causing things to jump from 2 to 5 because there's too much loose carbon powder. I really don't know if that's the case or not, but we'll find out. The big thing is I don't want to damage the carbon pads any more than they already are. I want to kind of keep them as intact as possible. The carbon pad on the PCB itself is in a kind of lined shape. There's a kind of a design, and it's almost like it's like a molding of some kind. I don't want to quite call it paint, but it's a kind of molding of a molded pattern of some kind. Let's see if these ones look any better. Yeah, so these ones are a little bit better. They're not used quite as much. I do see the hi-hat, but there's like toms and other things that I don't really sequence with much. Of course, when I'm hitting, melody patterns and things like that, the drums that are on the top are going to be your black keys, whereas the lower ones are going to be your white keys. And of course, I'm often sequenced in C and G. We're probably going to be seeing a lot more wear on the other inserts than the inserts from the top shelf. So this second insert just really is in a lot better shape. I think it might be a really great idea to rotate them. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate them when I put them back into the unit. And just from this image alone, you can see the top shelf, which is actually the bottom, because remember this is flipped. On the very top, you see a lot more of the dark color. That has to go. So I'm going to go ahead and clean off each of these silicon pads. You see the actual buttons where the advance pads are kind of like a module. They have the knob pads, the advance pads, and the sequencer select pad as well, and they're all kind of put together in one silicon module. And you see these little black dots, and those I assume are going to be some kind of similar conductive surface that are going to make the unit understand that it needs to do whatever function that circuit is designed to do. So now I'm going to begin to just clean. I have a little bit of Windex on the tip of a paper towel. I'm going to be cleaning in between the pads. And I'm not going to actually clean the carbon surfaces themselves, but rather really just try to focus on in between the pads. And I'm going to clean the undersides of the silicon pads themselves. Again, anywhere I see that kind of black carbon powder, I'm going to pick it up because I'm afraid that perhaps one of the things that might be happening is you're getting unintentional kind of carbon conductivity, which is making the advance button jump. I don't know if that's the case or not, but we'll see. So this is actually the pad that I'm having issues with. It's the top case is actually flipped upside down, so though it looks like it's the top, this is actually the bottom pad. So I'm going to wipe that down, and I've also had problems with that first sequencer, so I'm going to wipe this one down too. I'm going to run the air blower across the entire PCB because I just want to really get whatever kind of loose carbon powder out of the way. Just going to wipe down some other tiny parts that I see have collected a little bit of dust. It's not really needed for the purposes of this fix, but you know, why not? It's not actually on the circuit board itself, it's just the kind of plastic strips or rubber strips. Here's a little close-up of the PCB itself, so you can see the line pattern, the line molding of the carbon surfaces a little more clearly, as well as the dots that are meant to connect with the black dots on the underside of the silicon pads. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move around the silicon pads, and I'm going to move around the carbon inserts or the molded inserts because all the inserts that have a lot of wear on them, I want to move them to the places where I use the least. And all the ones that are from the places I use the least, I want to move them into the places I use the most so we can kind of extend the life of these materials. All right, so everything's kind of put together. Now let's put the PCB back into place, just going in reverse. All right, let's put the billion screws back in. One thing to note is that there is one hole in the PCB which does not have a corresponding screw. It's just a mystery hole, probably from a design that they didn't feel the need to. I have no idea why, but there is one hole that says it needs a screw that it does not have a screw. And of course, do not forget to put back the ribbon into the roller pad. Just take it and just put it right back in. Again, there's nothing to kind of keep it in other than the tension itself. And let's put that metal plate back on. And while we're here, I'm going to go ahead and gone all of the knobs. I've had 8 years of gunk. And these kind of plastic knobs are awesome. But so like some of the Moog like side cheeks, where after a while they kind of become a little sticky. It's like a plastic stickiness that just kind of comes out of nowhere. So I have Goo-Gone, and we're just going to go ahead and soak it in the Goo-Gone and then wipe it off. One thing I want to note is that this is kind of an abbreviated walkthrough of me taking this apart. So you can go to Earth Modular Society's YouTube channel, which I'll have a link in the description. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just put in a couple of sequences just to test all the buttons and make sure that they are hitting. And they are, so we're good. And now the big moment. Let's see how we did. Dang. So it was not a success, but it does give me an idea. And this idea was supported by someone on Earth Modular Society, Shock, who also was thinking that maybe it might be a good idea to swap out 2 of the pads. This is quite disappointing, but you know, just a little more troubleshooting is in order. So I'm just going to take it apart again. We're going to swap out the Sequencer 2 silicon module with the drum pad module, and we're just going to see if that improves anything. All right, now let's put it back together again. Give it a little power, and then another moment of truth. All right, the buttons work. Now we're advancing one at a time. We're not having any skips. Let's go through and check out all of the pads now that we've swapped it around. So now the only thing really to complete this project is to get new buttons. I am really lucky to have gotten replacements for all 3 silicon modules. So all the 3 sequencers, I have pads to replace. And let's go ahead and install them and, see how it works. One thing I really want to say is that I think it's so cool that Arturia has made a fixable machine, a fixable unit. It's so rare for that to happen these days. Look at these buttons and awesome stickers. Very cool. Thank you for that. Let's put them in. Now I'm just going to take these old ones out and here, let's put the new ones in. Put everything back together. Once again, do not forget to put the ribbon back in. It's so important. All right, let's power it up. And there we go, one at a time. We have a new functioning Arturia BeatStep Pro. All the pads are working. Double check. Looking beautiful. Gonna check the second one as well. And the first one. Let's go ahead and check out all of the different pads. They're all working perfectly. Voila. So it's working now. I'm so excited. This is really something that I want to thank Arturia for, making a machine that is actually able to be fixed. These days, that's a rare thing. And so I'm just going to go ahead and play you out, I guess. Please give me a like and subscribe if you found it useful. Check out some of my other videos. I have a couple. All right.